My dad said, "You're no daughter of mine," to my pregnant sister. My mom pointed at the door, so I grabbed my coat and left with her. 3 years later, one uninvited visit changed everything. My father stood up so fast his chair hit the wall. That sound, wood against drywall, sharp and final, is the one I hear when I think about that night. Not what he said after, not my mother's face, just that sound. The specific violence of a man pushing back from a table because the words he needs to say require him to be standing. "You are no daughter of mine." My sister Josie was 23 years old, 17 weeks pregnant. She had come to Sunday dinner with something she needed to say, and she had said it, and she had not finished her sentence before my father was on his feet. My mother did not yell. My mother has never yelled in her life. She considers it a loss of dignity. What she did was fold her napkin, precisely, placed it beside her plate, stood, walked to the front door, opened it, and pointed at the driveway where the rain had been coming down since 5 o'clock. Josie stood at the table. I watched her look at our father, then our mother, then the open door, with the specific expression of a person who had known, on some level, that this was possible and had hoped to be wrong. She was not wrong. I pushed back my own chair. I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door. I grabbed Josie's. I took my sister's hand, and we walked past our mother, past the open door, down the front steps, and into the rain. My mother closed the door before we reached the car. My name is Myra Calloway. I am 31 years old. At the time of that dinner, I was 26, working 2 jobs, a day shift at a dental office and a Friday-Saturday evening shift at a restaurant that paid me in cash, and renting a 1-bedroom apartment on Clover Street in a part of town that was fine but not comfortable. I had a second-hand couch and a kettle that took 7 minutes to boil and approximately $340 in savings. Josie showed up at my door an hour after we left the dinner table. She had walked because she didn't have a car and my parents lived 22 blocks away, and the rain had not stopped. She was soaked through her jacket, through her shirt, down to her shoes, which made a specific sound on my entry floor when she stepped inside. She was holding an ultrasound photo in both hands, not in her pocket, not in her bag, in both hands, held against her chest, the paper soft at the edges from being carried that way for a while. I pulled her inside, got a towel, put the kettle on. She sat on the second-hand couch and I wrapped the towel around her shoulders, and she looked at the ultrasound photo and said, "Dad said I'm not his daughter anymore." Mom opened the door, not crying, something past crying. The flat, exhausted voice of someone who has used up the emotional reserves that crying requires. "You're staying here," I said. "That's not a question." She looked up at me. "I can sleep on the couch," she said. "I'll sleep on the couch," I said. "You're sleeping in the bed." The kettle boiled. I made the tea. I sat beside my sister on a Tuesday night and held her hand while the rain came down outside, and I thought about our mother folding her napkin, and I thought about my father's chair hitting the wall, and I thought about a baby the size of a peach who had not yet been given a name and who was already the reason 2 people had decided to close a door. We were raised at Grace Fellowship Church. I want to tell you about that because it is the context without which the rest of the story doesn't make the kind of sense it needs to make. Grace Fellowship had been our family's church for 26 years. My father was a deacon, had been since I was 4 years old. My mother chaired the women's ministry, organized the annual retreat, brought the white ceramic casserole dish to every event that required one. They sat in the 3rd pew from the front, left side, every Sunday morning without exception. Their attendance record was one of those things the congregation noted with the specific admiration reserved for consistency. Pastor Gregory Harmon had led that congregation for 25 years. He was 61, silver-haired, with the handshake of a man who had practiced it as a professional skill, and the voice of someone people trusted more than their own instincts. His sermons were about integrity and community, and the particular moral clarity that comes from knowing which choices are correct, and making them, and the congregation nodded and the congregation believed him, because he delivered it with conviction, and because conviction in certain rooms is its own kind of proof. His son was Ethan Harmon, Eagle Scout, engineering scholarship to Georgia Tech, then a master's program in Stuttgart. Ethan had grown up in Grace Fellowship the way children grow up in their parents' institution. Visible, praised, the object of a certain kind of community pride. Pastor Greg's boy. You know how he turned out. He was 26 at the time of that dinner. He was in Germany. He had been in Germany for 18 months. He had also, in the 6 months before he left, been seeing my sister. I didn't know this when Josie came to my door. I didn't know it when Micah was born, 6 months later, on a Tuesday morning in February, with curly brown hair and a wide jaw and a grip that the nurse said was unusually strong for a newborn. I noticed the jaw. I noticed it didn't resemble anyone in our family in any direction. I said nothing. Josie never told me who the father was. She said once in the early months that she had handled it and that it was complicated and that she would tell me when she could. She said it with the look of someone carrying something that hasn't found its place yet. I let her carry it. I had enough of my own to carry. I was not a martyr about the double shifts and the 2 a.m. diaper changes and the way my savings account went from $340 to $0 and rebuilt itself in increments. I want to be clear about that. I chose to be there because Josie needed someone to choose her and nobody else was going to. That is not heroism. That is just the minimum of what people should do for each other. And I happened to be in a position to do it. What I was not, for 3 years, was thanked by the people who had made it necessary. My parents did not call, not once. Not when Micah was born, not when Josie started nursing school on a schedule that required me to adjust my own work hours around her clinic clinicals, not at Christmas, not on Josie's birthday. When Josie was rushed to the emergency room at 32 weeks with dangerously high blood pressure, a condition called preeclampsia, which can escalate to seizure and is serious enough that the OB on call had Josie admitted within 20 minutes of arrival, I sent my mother one text. Josie is in the hospital. Complications. Read at 9:41 p.m. No reply. My mother read that her pregnant daughter was in the hospital and went to sleep. I sat in a hospital waiting room on a plastic chair and stared at that 9:41 read receipt for a long time. The letter was in Josie's nightstand drawer. I found it on a Thursday afternoon in the second year. Josie was at her nursing clinical. Micah was at daycare. I was changing the sheets in Josie's room, something I did every week, quietly without announcement. And when I opened the nightstand drawer to clear it before lifting the mattress, I found it. 3 pages, blue ink, unfolded and refolded enough times that the crease lines had gone transparent, the paper worn thin at the folds the way paper gets when someone has read something too many times to count. Dear Ethan, I sat down on the edge of the bed. I should not have read it. I know that. I read the first 3 lines and understood what I was reading, and I should have put it down, and I did not put it down. She had written it apparently when Micah was 4 months old. It described the pregnancy and the birth and what had happened at the dinner table and what her life had become since. It described Micah in the specific language of a person who loves someone completely and wants another person to understand what that love contains. It described Ethan, what she remembered of him, what she had felt, the specific way something between them had been real before circumstances had separated it. At the bottom of the last page, in handwriting smaller than the rest, I haven't sent this because if I do, you'll come home. If you come home, your father will know. And if he knows, he'll tell my parents. And I don't know what my parents would do. They threw me out for getting pregnant. I can't let you come home and be destroyed the same way. She had protected him. She had spent 2 years carrying this alone, had written 3 pages to the person who should have been carrying it with her, and had not sent them because she was trying to protect him from the same people who had destroyed her. I sat on her bed for a long time. Then I took out my phone. I found Ethan Harmon on LinkedIn in 4 minutes. Engineering program in Stuttgart. The same photo I remembered from the church directory. Older now. I sent a message through the platform. There's something you need to know. It's about a child. Please respond when you can. He responded in 2 hours. What child? What are you talking about? I told him the relevant facts. No interpretation, no emotion. The facts as I knew them and what I believed he should understand. He was quiet for 2 days. Then he responded, "Can I call you?" We talked for 40 minutes. He asked questions I answered honestly. He said he had not known. He said he needed to think. He said he was sorry for the gap in that sentence, that thinking was not the right word, that he meant he needed to figure out how to do what was right from where he was. She protected you, I told him. She didn't send the letter because she didn't want you to come home and get hurt. A long pause on the line. She shouldn't have had to protect me from my own choices, he said. 6 weeks later, he flew home. I did not tell Josie how Ethan found out. I told her I had reached out to him, and she looked at me with an expression I couldn't fully read. Complicated, layered, with relief in it somewhere and something else beneath the relief. She didn't ask me how I had known where to find him. She had probably been carrying the answer to that question for 2 years and had understood, in the way you understand things you are not ready to examine, that the letter had not stayed as private as she'd intended. She didn't ask. I didn't explain. Ethan came to the apartment on a Saturday afternoon. Josie and I had not discussed what this meeting would be because we did not know what it would be. I put Micah in his high chair with huffs and went to the kitchen and pretended to organize a cabinet I had organized the previous week. I heard Micah say, "Hi." I heard a man's voice say, "Hi, I'm Ethan." I heard Micah eat puffs with the focused efficiency of a child who has been given a snack and considers that the main event. Josie and Ethan talked for a long time. I stayed in the kitchen. I am not going to tell you the contents of that conversation because it was not mine to hear and is not mine to tell. What I can tell you is that when Ethan left 2 hours later, Josie came to find me still in the kitchen. "He wants to be in Micah's life," she said. "Yes," I said. "He wants to figure out what we are." I looked at my sister. "What do you want?" I asked. She thought about it. "To not be alone with this anymore," she said. "That's what I want." Micah's 3rd birthday party was on a Saturday in July. Dinosaur tablecloth, his current passion, chocolate cake with green frosting at his specific request, streamers on the fence posts of my backyard, 12 families from his daycare, which meant 12 children between the ages of 2 and 4, and the specific controlled chaos that implies. Ethan was coming. He had been coming to things for 6 months, first tentatively, then regularly, with the particular patience of someone who understands they are building something that cannot be rushed. He and Josie were figuring out what they were in the slow and genuine way that things get figured out when both people in them are trying to be honest. My parents had not been invited. I want to be clear about that because it matters. They were not invited, and they showed up anyway, and the choice to show up uninvited is its own statement about what they believed they were owed. My mother came through the side gate at 11:15, carrying the white ceramic casserole dish with the chipped rim. The same dish, the same presentation of contribution that had always contained more performance than warmth. My father came behind her, scanning the yard with the expression of a man who has arrived somewhere he is not sure of his footing. 3 years of silence, no phone calls, no birthday cards, no response to a text about their daughter in the hospital. Quick pause. If you want more stories like this in better quality, my Spotify's linked in the description. 3 years, and then then an uninvited arrival at a child's birthday party carrying a casserole dish. I looked at them from across the yard. Micah ran up to me and grabbed my leg. "Auntie Myra, who are those people?" He said those people with the casual precision of a 3-year-old categorizing the world. "Your grandparents, baby." He looked at them the way you look at a stranger in a post office, noticing their presence, finding nothing particular to attach to it. Oh, then he turned and ran back to the water balloons, because he was 3 years old and there were water balloons. My mother's face did something. The specific movement of a face receiving information it had not prepared for, the information that a child who was supposed to be a grandchild did not know her, and had registered the fact of her existence with approximately the same interest he'd brought to a stranger at the post office. She had done this to herself. She had done it 3 years ago at a dinner table in the rain. I walked toward them. I was going to say something. I had a version of this conversation in mind, the version where I asked them to leave without creating a scene at a 3-year-old's birthday party. I was 2 steps away from beginning that version when the gate opened. Ethan walked through carrying a wrapped box, dinosaur paper, because he had asked Micah's preference and Micah had been clear. Micah was across the yard at the water balloon station. He turned. The specific radar of a small child detecting a person they love is something I have watched operate many times since Ethan came into our lives, and it still produces something in my chest every time. Micah dropped the water balloon he was holding, turned fully toward the gate, and ran, full speed, both arms out. "Daddy! Daddy!" He launched himself at Ethan's legs with enough force to have knocked a smaller man sideways. Ethan scooped him up without breaking stride, the practiced motion of a person who has been scooping up the same child for 6 months, and has calibrated exactly how much momentum to absorb. He carried Micah toward us. My father had gone completely still. He was staring at the child in Ethan's arms. The curly brown hair, the wide jaw that I had noticed the morning Micah was born and had filed away without knowing what I was filing it under. The face that matched, unmistakably and specifically, the face of the man holding him. My father knew that face. He had looked at that face across a church pew for 25 years. "That's the Harmon boy," he said. His voice was strange, thin, disconnected from the moment, the voice of a man processing something that doesn't fit his existing architecture. "That's Pastor Harmon's son." My mother had stopped moving. The serving spoon she had brought for the casserole was in her hand, and it was not moving, and she was not moving, and her face had the specific quality of a stopped clock. "How?" she said, not loudly, almost to herself. "How is this possible? We would have known. Someone did tell you," I said. My voice was level. I had thought about this moment. Not planned it, not scripted it, but thought about it in the way you think about things that you know are coming. I had thought about what I wanted to say, and I had thought about how I wanted to say it, and I had decided that what I wanted was precision. "Josie tried to tell you. She came to your dinner table to tell you she was pregnant, and before she could finish her sentence, Dad was on his feet calling her no daughter of his, and Mom was opening the door." I looked at both of them in turn. "She was 17 weeks pregnant and standing in the rain at 10 o'clock at night because you didn't let her finish a sentence." My mother drew a breath. "If I had known who the father was," she started. "That's exactly the problem." I said it quietly. "That is the whole problem," stated plainly. "You would have kept her if the last name was good enough. You were willing to throw away your daughter because you didn't know who the father was, and you would have made a different decision if you'd known it was Harmon." I paused. "She needed you to keep her regardless." The backyard was very quiet in the way a backyard full of children goes quiet when the adults have stopped functioning normally and the children have sensed it and stilled. My father looked at Micah in Ethan's arms. He looked at a child he had been missing for 3 years because he had thrown away the woman who made him before he knew who the father was. His hands were trembling, not with anger this time, with something that had no performance left in it. Josie came across the yard. She had been watching from the porch with the expression of a woman who had been waiting for this moment for 3 years and had not been sure how it would feel when it arrived. She had Micah's juice cup in her hand. She stopped a few feet from my mother. My mother looked at her daughter. 3 years of nothing. 3 years of choosing silence when their daughter was in a hospital and their grandson was being born and the world was continuing without them because they had decided their rules mattered more than their children. "Josie," my mother said. Josie looked at her. "I want to tell you that Josie said something devastating and precise and true. I want to tell you there was a speech, a reckoning, a moment of full account delivered in a backyard in July with dinosaur streamers on the fence posts. There wasn't." Josie looked at our mother for a long moment. Then she said, "Micah needs his juice." She handed me the cup and walked back to her son. That was it. Not reconciliation. Not absolution. Not the open door that my mother had once offered in the opposite direction, pointing at the rain. Just a woman who had been thrown away choosing, in full control of herself, what she was and was not willing to give to the people who had done it. My father sat in my backyard for 2 hours. I did not ask him to stay. I did not ask him to leave. He sat at the end of a picnic bench and watched his grandson eat chocolate cake with green frosting and run through the water balloon station and climb into Ethan's lap to show him something on a toy, and he sat with whatever he was sitting with, and I let him sit with it. My mother talked to Josie. I don't know what they said. Josie told me later that it had not been an apology. Not exactly. That my mother had not found the words for an apology yet. That what she had said was closer to an explanation, which is not the same thing, and both of them had known it. But she came, Josie said. She actually came with the casserole dish. She's always come with the casserole dish, I said. I know. Josie was quiet. But she came. time. I understood what she meant. I didn't agree with it as a sufficient accounting, but I understood it. The relationship between my parents and Josie is not what I would call repaired. Repair, in my understanding of the word, implies that a thing has been returned to its previous state. What my parents broke at that dinner table cannot be returned to its previous state. The previous state was a daughter who trusted them. That daughter no longer exists, because what they did at that table taught her something about what she was worth to them that cannot be untaught. What exists now is something smaller and more careful. My parents see Micah on holidays. Not all of them. Some of them. The ones Josie decides she has the capacity for. My mother brings the casserole dish. My father sits with Micah and teaches him things, slowly, in the way of a man who understands he is building something on a foundation he damaged and is trying not to damage further. Ethan and Josie got married last April. Small ceremony. My backyard again. Different streamers. Micah was the ring bearer and lost the ring in the grass approximately 40 seconds after being given it, and it took 11 adults and one extremely motivated child to find it, which produced the best wedding story I have ever been part of. Pastor Greg Harmon was not there. He and Ethan had their own complicated accounting to work through. A father who had not known his son had left someone in a difficult situation, who had spent years unknowingly perpetuating a community narrative that had contributed to why Josie had been afraid to speak. That reckoning was between them and is not mine to characterize. What I can tell you is that the congregation of Grace Fellowship Church still has no idea. The deacon and his wife sit in the third pew every Sunday. The pastor gives his sermons about integrity and community. The people nod. And in my backyard on a Saturday in April, my sister married a good man who had spent 6 months earning his place in a family he had been absent from. And my nephew carried a ring he immediately lost, and I stood beside my sister while she made a choice she made for herself and for no one else. There is something I have thought about since the birthday party, since my mother said if I had known who the father was. I have thought about all the versions of Josie that statement implied would have been acceptable. Josie pregnant by the pastor's son. Acceptable, apparently, or at least worth reconsidering. Josie pregnant by someone they knew. Someone with the right name, the right pew, the right church. Probably acceptable. Josie pregnant by a man outside the congregation, outside their world. Not acceptable. The door opening. The rain. The line was never about pregnancy. The line was about whose family you were connecting to. The line was about reputation and social positioning dressed up as morality. My sister's child deserved to exist regardless of whose son his father was. She deserved to be her parents' daughter regardless of who she loved. Those should not have been complicated sentences. They weren't complicated to me. They weren't complicated to Josie. They were only complicated to the people sitting in the third pew every Sunday, nodding along to sermons about integrity. And I think they know that now. And I think knowing it costs them something, and I think that cost is appropriate. Micah is 4 now. He knows my parents' names. He calls them Grandpa and Grandma because Josie decided to give them that, which was Josie's choice to make, and I respected it. Last month, he asked me out of nowhere in the car on the way to daycare, "Auntie Myra, why don't you have kids? I've been busy helping take care of you," I said. He thought about that. "I'm glad," he said. Then he asked me to put on the dinosaur song, which is a song about a T-Rex that he has been requesting for 14 months without any sign of losing interest. I put on the dinosaur song. We drove to daycare.